Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. How are you? Hopefully, everyone is doing well. I am so grateful today, and I'm so happy that it is summer. Finally, warming up a little. Today is beautiful outside with beautiful blue skies. Um, yeah, I wish I could film all this outside. But around in my neighborhood, like there's just so much noise, whether it's neighbors mowing the lawn or traffic going by, you wouldn't be able to hear me. So, anyway, welcome. Hopefully, everyone is doing well. There's been a lot of things happening, hasn't there? Wow, my goodness. Um, I wanted to I was telling you last video a couple things that I had bought that were sort of herbally for my decorations before we get into it. So I just wanted to show you guys how cute. Like, look at this. Isn't this cute? It's got like a little herbal thing. It's like a little pocket that you hang on your wall. So I got some flowers to put inside. So I'm gonna hang that on my wall. I'm so excited. And then they had these cool things, and I painted that. I painted it because there was no color to it. I was like, it just needs some color. So I just thought that was a cool thing. And for it to be a dandelion, everyone thinks they're weeds, but they're very health beneficial. So I am so excited to hang that up. So anyway, I'm just in a good mood today. I got some sleep finally. Yeah, I wish I could just go sit outside all day, but I have things to do inside too. So I have today and tomorrow off. Next week with the 4th of July, thank God I have like 4 days off. I'm so excited about that. So I can actually like meet up with some friends, have some lunch, like just, get to do the things I need to do as far as even cleaning my house, running errands. I just feel like lately working the extra day a week, like I just haven't had time to do anything. I've had a lot of dreaming, astral traveling, but those are really, some of them I can't remember. So I don't really call them astral traveling if you can't remember, you know. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm already transcribing his next webinar, which was from June 17th, I think. Yeah, so anyway, this is Alex Collier's information from June 10th of this year, 2022. So let's get started. He says, hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the donations. He says, look, where we are going to cover a lot of things today, and one of the things I think is really, really important one to have a perspective on is that as the dark wall of secrecy is collapsing, what we have as a result of that is the lack of suppression. And we have an overwhelming amount of information, contradictory information, spreading throughout the planet. He says, now, when I say contradictory, I mean compared to the narrative of bullshit, he says, that they have been feeding us for decades. He says, that's what I'm referring to. Now, as this information continues to come out, a lot of it will be new intel. However, it's extremely dated information. He says, but nonetheless, it's valid intel. So when you get some of this information now, you have to realize that some of this intel is extremely dated. He says it could be years old. However, the intelligence, the information that's finally being presented is in real time. He says it is in current time. Let's see. He says, so it's important to take some of this information and understand that when we're putting together a timeline of events, Some of this new information will actually go back a couple of years, and it will fill a gap with information we didn't have. So what it does is it strengthens the information, the timeline of events that are leading up to today. It says, and this is important to know. It says, now there are some things that are absolutes. One of those is that we are on one timeline. We are not at war on multiple timelines, all right? No one's managing that. We can't even manage one country, never mind managing multiple timelines, extraterrestrial races, and just all of that. He says it's just not possible. He says, so we are on one timeline. A lot of information regarding those type of things is dated information. However, the intelligence of the events that occurred past tense is again significant because it helps fill in the gaps in the narrative and the timeline of events that are leading us to where we are today. He says, I am very much aware of how much different information there is and how more information is coming out from many different sources. And there are a lot of people who they just gather the intel. That's all they do. They just want more intel, more information, yada, yada, yada. It says, now, what are they actually going to do with it? It says, I have no idea. But even though there's more than an avalanche of information, of intel coming forward in the next 4 to 5 months, it's important to remember to be in the moment, to pay attention to what's going on around you, because the future that we're creating, the energy you're putting into what it is that you want is right here, right now. Says we cannot lose this moment by constantly looking back or staying back there. We have to be present. It's okay to go back and research information or a piece of information, but don't stay there. He says, you know, there's an old sayings that if you carry the old bricks with you, you will build the same house in the future. He says you don't want to do that. The reason is the whole thing is collapsing is because it wasn't real in the first place, and we have to let it go. We don't need to be afraid to let it go. It's that Frozen song, let it go. Say that, let it go. We don't need to be afraid to let it go. We need to let it go. It wasn't serving us. In fact, it was stunting our creativity. It was stunting our spiritual evolution. It was suppressing our ability to create very in-depth relationships and experience true love. It was getting in the way of any loving relationship being continually in a courtship phase because it was forcing everyone into survival. And this was done by design. He says, ladies and gentlemen, all done by design. And I know I'm talking to a very smart group here, he says, but I never know where these webinars are going to end up. But it's always good to remember that our greatest strength is in the moment. It's not in the past. It's in the moment because it's here where we create our future, where we create it and draw it to us in the now and in the present, right? Why do you have to dwell on the past? It's not going to help you. It's already done and over with. So why not think of your future and in the moment what you can do? He says the Schumann resonance the last 3 to 4 days has been well over 100. He says, now I don't have clarification on this or not yet, but remember I told you a while back about we were going to experience gamma rays and neutrons from a star that went nova in Cygnus Alpha in the 1600s. So today is June 27th. Those rays are starting to just now hit us. So they're going to be hitting us big time in the next few weeks. I just saw something on Wages World on YouTube. There's a channel called Wages World, WAGES, and he does everything about the sun and every kind of flare and every kind of weird thing that it does. Like he has videos about that. It's really interesting. He says, it's interesting we are seeing this spike in the Schumann at roughly the same time the gamma rays are supposed to hit us. The gamma rays always come first, he says, because they move twice the speed of light, so they would get here first. He says, and I'm wondering if they're connected. I don't know this for a fact, but I wanted to bring this to your attention. Nonetheless, even if you're not paying attention, the Schumann resonance, or you hadn't heard, I think it was at 118 yesterday or the day before, but for the last 3 or 4 days, it's been 100 or more. She's increasing her frequency too, Mommy Earth. So he says that is certainly something we want to pay attention to because it is forcing change. It is creating change. There has been a significant uptake or uptick in UFO sightings. There's been some remarkable demonstrations and videos of ships all around the world, even off-world. It's pretty amazing stuff. Elena Denan sent me a WhatsApp email this morning about some things going on with the moon. It's not my place to share that. That's hers. But it sounded really, really intriguing, interesting information. So hopefully she will be sharing that information with everyone soon. Yeah, and the episode, I watched it. It's called Contact, Episode 9, Ancient Technology Retrieved from the Moon, on June 10th is the one she recorded. Dr. Michael Salla is putting together webinars and doing great presentations and interviews of a lot more information and perspective, which is always necessary. Because it's important to be able to look at this entire structure that we find ourselves in holographically. And what I mean by that is just not three-dimensional. In order to sometimes see things holographically, you have to take yourself out of it and put yourself up above everything that you're seeing. In other words, truly become the observer without any emotion, without any preconceived notions, just to take steps back and observe everything for what it is. Not what you want it to be, but what it is. And it's a very good practice to do because at some point, what happens is that you reconnect to a part of you that is holographic thinking and always has been. And it's the right brain. Okay, he says, it's right brain. And when you get to that place, he says, it's amazing how you see all the events that are going on simultaneously, how they're all connected to each other. And what you realize not only is humanity an organism, a living spiritual organism, but our relationship with another living organism of the planet becomes introspective. And at the same time, when you get to that point, you see all those things interconnected and moving together and interacting with each other. Then what you realize is that we are all interacting with the galaxy, and the galaxy is interacting with us. And what you come to understand is that all living things have a symbiotic relationship to one another. He says, now, this is imperative to remember. Let me stop a minute. I used to think years ago, and it really hit me, and as he's talking about taking a step back and observing, I always said to myself, so basically, we are the cells on this planet. If you know anything about medical, anything in like your body and how it works and the cells in your body. So if your cells are sick, like you're going to be sick, your whole body's going to be sick. So basically, humans, we are these spiritual little cells interacting all over inside Mother Earth, on Mother Earth. We're just the cells, okay? But we're beautiful, wonderful, magnificent cells, right? All interacting with each other. He says, now this is imperative to remember. Now this is imperative to look for all the time because we're not isolated. We're only isolated in our heads because that's been the conditioning for decades, for centuries. He says, is that we're all separate. He says, and nothing could be further from the truth. And as we begin to move together as humanity, as an organism, a symbiotic organism with the planet and the galaxy, we are moving together. Even the knuckleheads, he says, are being dragged along. Okay? And he laughs. He says, kicking and screaming, they're coming along. He said, to some degree. He says, that's just kind of how it all works. He says, now, one of the things that really irks me is people talking about multiple timelines. Yes, there were in the past. That simply is not the case any longer. The purpose of making sure that the past and the present are simultaneously moving in the same direction is to hone and focus all of humanity's energy into creating a world in which we are responsible for. How can we possibly step into our power if we're living simultaneous lives in difficult timelines? Hang on one sec. All right, sorry. Okay, let's move on. So, there were in the past and simply not the case any longer. It says the purpose of making sure that the past and the present are simultaneously moving in the same direction is to hone and to focus all of humanity's energy into creating a world in which we are responsible for. How can we possibly step into our power if we're living simultaneous lives in different timelines? And that totally makes sense. Regarding Earth, he says it's not possible. He says, so this is why a great deal of effort has gone into eliminating other timelines, merging them into what we have today, so that all of our energy is being focused on what it is we want. He says, now, all of us have lived other lifetimes in other dimensions and in part of other civilizations. There is a part of us that knows exactly what to do. There is a part of us that is so aware of what the right thing to do for us as humanity, to create. It's easy to say, just remember. He says, I've said it a dozen times. I remind myself of it all the time as well, but it isn't sometimes that easy. However, you constantly keep asking yourself, your soul group, those parts of you you're still connected to. Show me the knowledge that I need to know right now. Show me what it is that I need to know right now, this moment. And we just keep moving forward. If you're watching the world stage, especially the political stuff, he says it's a shit show. He says there's no question about it. He says, but that is by design, all right? It's all by design. We know that there are actors. We know that there are some of the people that are allegedly running this country here in America or in the world. He says they're wearing masks. We've seen the videos. We've seen the photographs. We've seen the tapes. He said, so we now know there are many actors on the stage. He says, so I'm going to share with you where we are at. He says, at this moment, and I'm going to do this rather unconventionally And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count all this as if we're watching a prize fight. Okay. Let me get a drink. And I love how he explains this. It's like a fight. It's like a major fight in the ring going on right now between evil and good. Okay, so he says, and in one corner, the challenger is humanity. He says, in the other corner is the deep state cabal. He's the current reigning champion, deep state. Big, brutish, intimidating, and for the first 10 rounds, humanity has had it rough. Centuries of getting the shit kicked out of it and of being betrayed and being manipulated, of head games being played on him, and he's been knocked down over and over and over again. He says, but humanity, he keeps getting back up. Every time he gets knocked down, he gets back up. And he engages again against the champion, Deep State. Now, what's interesting is that Deep State just can't believe this. You know, how does this person keep getting up off the canvas? I love this. When I've hit them with everything I've had, but humanity does, and now we're into the championship rounds. We're moving into the 11th round, and in the 11th round, humanity is like, you know, I've taken the best they had, and I have taken every blow, and I'm still here. Excuse me. And the deep state looks pretty tired, and he's thrown everything at me. So humanity is now moving in and is now pounding the body of the deep state over and over and over again. And these punches to the body are taking its toll. And what's happening is the deep state is having to drop its arms to protect itself because its body is starting to hurt. It's showing weakness. And the more that the deep state drops its hands to protect its ribs, its kidneys, its media, its corruption, its compromised government and agencies, he says, humanity begins to see openings. And as the fight continues, humanity just keeps pounding and pounding and pounding on the deep state. Now, the deep state begins to realize he's about to lose this fight. And the deep state is there on the ropes now, and humanity is hammering it, and he's had enough. Humanity has had enough, and he's just so done being abused by the deep state that he's totally focused on taking down the deep state, making sure he doesn't win this fight. Now, deep state realizes that the only way he's going to win this fight, because he's tired, he has thrown everything at humanity, is that he has to go savage. He has to do something absolutely ridiculous, whether it's a headbutt, whether it's biting humanity's ear in the ring or kicking him in the groin. Something that will not only get the fight stopped by the referee, but the judges around the ring, aka the military, will not tolerate it for a second. So either way, he's going to lose this fight. Either way. And he's looking at the crowd as he's covering up. You know, he's looking at the crowd and he can see all of the white hats surrounding him. Then he looks up to the lights, the stadium lights, and he realizes that there are fans and beings above, behind the lights that he can't see. The Alliance looking down on this battle, on this fight, and he realizes that the Alliance is just sitting there waiting for the outcome of this fight. And the deep state realizes he has no help. There is no one coming to rescue him anymore. There is no one to have his back. They've been hung out to dry because whatever protection they've had has either been removed or is in Gitmo. Says they're on their own now. So they're buying time. He's sitting on the ropes, praying for something to happen, something that will help him. But in the meantime, humanity is only getting stronger, and he's pounding and pounding and pounding the deep state body. And at one point, the hands are going to come down. The deep state's hands are going to come down. His arms are going to come down because he's so tired, and humanity's going to knock his ass out. Right. Once and for all, the deep state is going to hit the canvas and the fight is over. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. This is where we are. And he laughs and he says, you just got to hang in there. You just got to hang in there. Okay, things are changing. Says this thing is playing itself out. The deep state, they can't go savage. They just can't go savage. And you know, for those of you who are new and are just waking up to this, I totally understand where you're at. I have a lot of people around me, family, who are suddenly waking up on their own now, and they're absolutely flabbergasted because now they're seeing it for the first time. The blinders are off, and they're like, holy shit. And there are more and more people coming online. Those of us who've been awake, we have to have patience, and as best we can, maybe not give our time away, but direct them to find the information. The Denens, the Michael Salas, the Laura Eisenhowers, and so many other people that are out there talking, whether it's on Brighteon, Rumble, the Mayo, YouTube, those that are still up on YouTube. I am, because I have a small channel, but I love it anyway. The information is out there, and it's important that we direct them to that information as best we can, and that they do the research themselves. They've got to have some skin in the game here, because what they learn, they will pass down the line to people they know, and they have to know the material. They can't just say, oh, so-and-so said so-and-so said this. Okay, it says that's not good enough. Everybody needs to know the knowledge, and it's amazing what you can learn in just a couple of hours or weeks now. There's so much information. It all depends on your interests. Everything we're seeing politically and around the world is all show. It's all theater at this point. He says, I do not understand everything as to why they are doing some of the things they are doing. He says, the alliance, but it is what it is. Now, regarding the economic resets of the individual countries and asset-backed currencies in quantum financial system, it is in fact moving forward. No one knows the time, no one knows the day. And I get how tough it is. Says, I so do. I so do. But we're all in this together, and it's going to happen when it's meant to happen. So do not give up. Says, do not lose hope. It's important to remember the deep state, the cabal, even our own government in this country never wanted this transfer of wealth to be shared with the people. They never did, because then we would be in control, you see. Then you would break it all down. That's the issue. It's power over others as opposed to power being shared equally. They wanted all the power. This is why they went to the birth certificates, which is why they created fictitious entities at our birth. And it goes on and on and on. And again, if you want to know a lot about the birth certificate, look up the straw man. Also Maxwell, Jordan Maxwell. He has a lot about the birth certificate in your straw man. Great information. Okay. The Vatican creating the three trusts. It's all about power, controlling others. It says, well, in a spiritual civilization, a spiritual realm In a spiritual society, power is shared equally. Wisdom not necessarily becomes with wisdom comes from experience. Wisdom comes from experience. Okay? You can learn something in a book. You can learn how to swim. But if you jump in that pond and you have no experience, your ass is going to drown. He says, there's a difference. He says, stay positive. I know how hard it is. The deep state, they won't stop. They will not stop until the very end, until they're done. He says, monkeypox, they're talking about mass again, smallpox. It just goes on and on and on. He says, I get that, but that this is a game. You know who they are. You know what their agenda is. There's no reason to be afraid of these idiots. Do things to strengthen your own immune system. Share this knowledge with others if they're open to it, and especially ways to strengthen their immune system so they don't get sick. Now, there are a great deal of healing modalities. That are finally seeing the light of day. They are coming out from the conspiratorial rumored sections. Okay? They're finally coming to the forefront. Color, light, and sound healing, the holographic healing. I want to be careful in saying the medbeds. Someone I know referred to them as healing arcs, which is probably a good term. There's all kinds of technology coming out, and there's a particular group that's not waiting on anybody to approve or anything. They're moving forward. And if you're interested and you want to follow this group, I'm a member of this group. It's called quantumhealingsystems.com. They're working on some pretty incredible stuff. Some of it is well into the testing phase. One of the things they are working on is a quantum bracelet. This is technology that's been around for a long, long time, but it's been suppressed. Some of this probably goes back thousands of years. Some of our forefathers and mothers used it and knew about it, but it was all suppressed. Another thing we all need to be aware of as we're gathering more intelligence is that for the last several hundred years, the world has been living Admiralty law. That's all going away. That is being dissolved slowly but surely, and what's going to replace it is common law. And there is a vast difference between the two legal systems. It's important to know what they are so that when information comes to you of legal nature, you have a point of reference. The legal system we have today is beyond broken. He says again. And so it has to be replaced. And the reason it was put into place, the reason Admiralty law was put into place over countries was to control and manipulate the people and suppress freedoms. And a common law system, the citizen has all the rights and the jurisdiction, not the courts. He says, please research this yourself when you can. He says, there are many people talking about common law versus admiralty law systems. This is all coming to the forefront, and what's going to happen is as the information begins to clash with each other, it's going to cause some confusion unless you're clear about what it all means and understand we're leaving the admiralty law system behind. We're replacing it with common law system, which is what the United States was in the beginning. It was a common law system. We are leaving a fiat currency system for an asset-backed currency system, which will involve hard currency, hard assets, as well as some cryptos or digital currency. It's going to be a combination of all of it. But understand something. This will be the last financial system humanity has before we transition to a non-monetary system. Do you understand? I've known that for a long time. It will be like Star Trek. You won't have to have money. You will be taken care of. All your essentials taken care of. Okay. We won't need money. This is the last one we're going to be using. So it makes sense for you, for all of us to clearly investigate and try to understand as much as we can what's coming and how it's being structured, how it's being managed and being put into place. He says some AI is going to be used. Some AI is here already, and it's going to be task oriented, period. Just very specific task oriented. It is not going to be managing an entire system and controlling what everybody and everything does. Those systems don't work because they too are easily manipulated and controlled, and then that's how everyone loses their freedoms again. He says, so, but we're learning. We're learning. Humanity is learning. Humanity is taking lessons from very advanced ETs and civilizations who have been here already and who have been helping other third density civilizations evolve, even some fourth evolve. The issue for us is we don't have any of this knowledge because of the past of this planet, and its relationship with the rest of the galaxy has been suppressed. So we don't have a working background or knowledge of a working background. That's our forefathers and foremothers had in dealing with the ETs and other advanced civilizations, and how well it worked when it did work. All of that has been stripped from us. Humanity is stepping into its power. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all doing it. And the level of crazy, he just laughs, that we're seeing in the world today is evidence of that. It's evidence that humanity is stepping into its power, and we are not tolerating any more of this nonsense. We're seeing it for what it is. We're understanding who's behind it. We understand why they're doing it, and we understand they've been attacking future generations for quite some time. He says, now, that's all out in the open, whether others are awake or not. All of us that is now out in the open, it's up to those that are not awake to find the information or to see it for themselves. But what we have to do for those of us who are awake is to continue to move forward, step into our power, be an example for the rest of them, and at the same time, protect them until they do wake up. As best as we can in defending each other, we will remain free, and that's what we have to do. There's some things coming down the pipe. He says, I can't tell you how excited I am actually. He says, but I know it's tough. He says, I know it's tough. He repeats that, and he says, you go to the grocery store, you drop $300 or $400, and you have nothing to show for it. Oh boy, I know that for sure. Like a lot of you, I used to be able to go and spend, 10 years ago, when we lived in Texas, I could fill my cart up with, meats and everything you needed for like a full week of groceries and dinners and meals, and only spend about $130. Now, whatever I buy, I don't even fill my cart. It's probably halfway full, and I barely buy meat every once in a while, and it's well over $200 a week. That's just in one place. And then when you have to go and buy extra things because you forgot things, or you have prescriptions, or you have gas to put in your car, there's another $200-300. So who the hell has money right now? I sure don't. I'm still barely making it. I don't know how I'm going to make my mortgage payment. Yeah, I'm living penny to penny, just like a lot of you are. So the only way I don't stress about it, let me tell you, is I just live in the moment. I just live for the present moment. Like that's all I can do, and I don't think about what's going to happen. I just can't, or I would probably make myself sick. And I really, I don't want to go to work anymore. A lot of us just don't want to go to work anymore. We have that thing that just, I don't know, we just don't want to work for anybody else. Okay. And plus, when you're working, you can't ever get done anything that needs to be done at home, ever. It seems like nothing ever gets done anymore because I don't have enough time. Um, but I have to tell myself just to go to work. Like, okay, just think of it this way, that you're going to help others out. You're going to work to help people who come into your store get what they need in their life. That's the only way I can look at it, um, to make me feel somewhat better about going to work, right? Like, hopefully it's not just me, but that's how I get through it. He says, I know. He says, I've got kids who are struggling big time because they're like, wow, Dad, what happened? And he laughs and he says, so suddenly they don't know everything. And he laughs. He says, which is a great place to be if you're a kid. He says, when you come to that realization, you don't know everything. Some of the younger generations think we got old just because we're lucky, and that it's just not at and that's not it at all. It's because of wisdom, because of experience. And two particular young people that I know, which I'm assuming were his kids, extremely well, intimately, have realized that everything they learned in high school and pretty much 2 years of college, he says, has turned out to all be bullshit. And it took everything for me not to say, I told you so. And he laughs, and I love that, and I so want to say that to so many people too, like, I told you so, but yeah, it's not gonna help even if you said that, but maybe just say it in your head to yourself. He says, but they got there on their own, you see, and there are children everywhere beginning to wake up. They see what's going on and they're going, well, what kind of a future are we going to have? He says, well, it's funny that you mentioned that. What kind of a future would you like to see? And I'm engaging these conversations with these young people because they're incredibly powerful in creating reality. If they just let their imagination go, it's amazing the things they can create and how fast they move forward. And this is what we need to be doing with all our young people, is to give them direction, give them something, to focus on that's positive, that they want to see. This way they remain engaged. This way they become empowered because physically they can manifest in their own life. And there is nothing like teaching someone how to fish for themselves. Oh, I've got goosebumps. There's just nothing like it, because when they leave, they can take care of themselves. They know what to do. They have real experience. And when you take that experience and couple it with the ability to know what you're capable of, that self-confidence that comes from a soul level, there's no holding back these kids. He says it's absolutely remarkable. So if you see that, encourage it, okay? He says, well, the January 6th masquerade trial's going on. So this was a few weeks ago, or hearing a very, very big important piece of information came out, of course, that was given no coverage, nothing whatsoever, and that is that the Pentagon admitted there were 46 biolabs in the Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, especially those who are Americans, a lot of horrible things were done in our name that we know nothing about, that we are only finding out about now, and that's on us. When we abdicated management of our government to the government, he says, well, they ran amok. They absolutely ran amok and became corrupted, and they became tyrannical, and all the technology they were building and everything they were reverse engineering, they were using for themselves, and they've turned it against us, the people. and they've literally branded us the enemy. Now, I want to remind you that was the people who it was the people that created the colonies. The colonies became states, and the states created the federal government. Every state is an independent republic. Okay, so when he says, let me just say something here too. He says, and that they were holding this technology for themselves and they've turned against us, the people, and that they branded us the enemy. In my past video where I've talked about maybe we are the fallen angels and how Alex talks about we came here to right a horrible wrong, and we were angels and we fell down through the physicality, through the dimensions. And like I said, everything they say is twisted, okay? So they're trying to say or teach us that the fallen angels are bad, they're demons, blah, blah. Maybe that's twisted back on us because they branded us the enemy. We're their enemy. And of course, they're going to twist it and say we're the bad ones and that they're the good ones. Just a thought. Just a thought, something to think about, okay? He says every state is an independent republic. That's how this was set up, and there was a very specific reason for that, because the history of Europe and other parts of the world that were set up as monarchies, 90% of them were horrible for the people, absolutely horrible. It says because when they consolidate power at the top, it becomes abusive. He says now we're waking up to a totally corrupt government, corrupt agencies and media that couldn't tell the truth with a gun to its head. And anytime you hear a piece of truth from the media, it was a mistake. And he laughs and he says, it was a slip of the tongue, and it's been that way for hundreds of years. He says, so what do we do from this moment forward? What it is that we engage in, the way that we approach any civil authority, we do it from a place of strength. We do it from a place of a constitutional right, a God-given right. And if all stand together, we've got all each other's backs. They will back down. Mega elite billionaires, there are roughly 1.6 million of them on the planet. There are 27 million mega millionaires. They control roughly 770 million military, government personnel, and agencies, etc., etc., etc. He says, so what we're talking about here is less than 1 billion people. Now that 770 million, they're just taking orders. So what we're really talking about is 27 million plus 1.7 million or 1.6 million people, less than 30 million people that control and manage the planet. That's the management team that has been manipulating humanity, structuralizing and herding humanity into this trap of the Great Reset, an extinction, genocide. So I want you to understand what the real numbers are here. It's not astronomical. We're not outgunned or outmanned in any way, shape, or form. America alone could take these sons of a bitches out, and they know it. They absolutely know it. They are terrified now, which is why they're trying to go after the guns, because they know what's coming. The hunters are going to be hunted. In fact, that's already begun. They're now being hunted. Think positive, stay positive. The deep state is totally on the ropes, and they have not made their last move yet. They haven't, but it's coming. Their last move is coming, whatever it's going to be, but they know they're surrounded. He says, you know, everything they've been doing, it's all a front, ladies and gentlemen. They will never let anyone know just how weak they are, because they have realized what happens, because they would do it to each other. If they had a competitor in the deep state that was weak, someone else would come in and take it down and take their power. fill that void, that power structure. It says just collapsed on, and then they'd fill that void to gather more power. That's how they think. That's how this works. So they will never show pain or show weakness, even though it's all theater. There's truly nothing behind it. He says, but they have I couldn't understand what he said. They have the something of a lifetime because almost all of them are being blackmailed. They're all being blackmailed. They're all on the take, and it's sad because what you give is what you get back. I wanted to remind you guys, I'm going to be in Mount Shasta July 7th through the 10th. This will be my last public speaking engagement on the West Coast. End of story, period, and I hope to see you guys there, those of you who can do it. I will not get on an airplane. I know the pilots, and they're sick. Many of them are sick, and they're not talking because they will lose their license, and then they can't fly again. He says, but they're sick because they were all mandated to take you know what I mean, and they're sick. He says, so I'm driving, and it is scary, the price of gasoline today. And to get there and back today, that's not 3 weeks from now. Here in Colorado, the prices are going up every day, but I don't know what it's going to be in 3 weeks from now. But as of today, it would be over $800 to get there and back. Probably more. He says, just in fuel. And if you're in the area there and it's not a hard jaunt for you, I would love to meet you. I wish I was. I would love to meet. The webinars will continue, but the public speaking will not. There are many other people coming forward with knowledge and information that I want to support and help them get out into the public light and to connect them to people I have met over the years that I know to be honest and really good people that will give them a fair shake, that will give them an interview, and do it the right way. Show them respect and allow them to tell their story. I've learned a lot over the years. He says, hell, there were people putting on shows and were advertising I was going to be there, and I didn't know anything about it, and I was never asked. But they did it just to draw people in the door. And then they would blame me for not showing up after they got the people's money. He says, you know, there's a lot of real dirt bags that do that shit. He says, I mean, I've seen it all, and I want to help folks not to go down that road, or you to go to an event and they don't pay you. The checks bounce and they disappear. And he laughs. It's been quite a journey. It has. But I have to focus on family now. I really do. And these times and the changes that are coming, the disclosure of truth of ancient earth history, of the physical and spiritual changes humanity is going to go through. He says, you know, I have to dedicate some time to family here to make sure to prepare them the best that I know how. He says, you know, human resources, the first thing they do is go online and look at your social media. And he laughs and he says, that's hurt me. Being the alien guy or the conspiracy theorist or the UFO enthusiast. He says, so that's why the webinars will continue. He says, you know, I know there are people who constantly complain, why doesn't he just do it for free? Well, when I did that, I was living in my car, and I'm sorry, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to go there anymore. I've been there, done that. Total of 4.5 years, okay? He lived in his car 4.5 years. The hell? Poor guy. I mean, so anyway, what else should we talk about before questions? He says, I know I'm forgetting something. There are a hell of a lot more of us that won't comply than there were 2 years ago. It's not necessary to focus on those who do. You have to allow them their path, and all you can do is love them from a distance and wish them the very best and enlightenment in everything that they do. But we have to keep moving on. We have to continue to expand consciousness on this planet. We cannot stop. We cannot hesitate. We cannot reverse course for any reason whatsoever. We have got to continue moving forward, bringing the light, holding the light, holding the light from here. Expand out from your heart. Shine your lights. Sharing the light and defending humanity, because we are in fact defending ourselves. And it's only a matter of moments before the deep state, the global cabal, completely collapses. There's no chance they're going to win this. He says it twice. There's no chance they're going to win this. Zero. But they're going to play their cards. They're going to play their cards, and that's what it is. He says, as far as Mount Shasta, that's Rob Potter's The Promise Revealed. He does this every year. It's a very beautiful place. I like that area of Northern California and Oregon. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from there. So if you're in the neighborhood, please stop by, even if you don't want to attend the event. I'll be there with Merlin, his little dog. He says, so come and say hi to Merlin at least. And he laughs. And he says, okay. He's a really, really great dog. Oh, so cute. Okay, and then we get into a few questions. First question, William Tompkins stated in one of his last interviews there was a reverse aging pill. He knew it had been used on about 65 people. Have you heard of this pill? It takes men back to 29 or 30 and women into early 20s. It seems far-fetched, but William is such a beautiful, credible soul. Alex's answer was, I've heard that interview. If I knew where to get the pills, I'd have more hair. And he laughs. But I don't know. He says, I would certainly be open to trying it. I would be, but I don't know anything more than that. Next question. I think of many happy memories during the 1980s, particularly toward the music and movies of the time, as well as the fall of Berlin Wall. I know there was a critical time when we switched timelines to the one we're on now. I'd love to hear you describe your perspective on this. Man, the 80s were great, right? Like, I don't know how many of you in my soul family, like, I was a teenager in the 80s, and that was just the best time, and like we didn't even realize it. And I had so much fun with my friends and just hanging out. Even having to move, we moved from Southern California to Northern Idaho, and that was a culture shock for me because I was used to all kinds of cultures in school, and then you go to Northern Idaho, and there were nothing but white people, and it was like it was a shock the other way, not having the culture. And but I had the best time with my friends. I had a best friend who loved Boy George, and man, she looked just like him when she'd dress up. We had the best time, like driving around and cruising and going to the beach during the summer, and we had so much fun during those times. And the music was great. It's not like the music nowadays. Like, it just kind of sucks. You get a few songs here and there that are good, but man, it wasn't like the 80s, that's for sure. Alex says, whoosh. He says, well, that came out of left field. He laughed. On the fall of the Berlin Wall, it would have happened anyway, basically, because the Eastern Europeans were done with the communist system. He says they were absolutely done. There was no support. There was rebellion everywhere. The system itself was collapsing. It couldn't even support itself. Because essentially, when you steal everything from the people, there's nothing left. And when there's nothing left to steal, the whole thing collapses on itself. My oldest brother was stationed in the army in Germany, and he did send us a certificate and a piece of the Berlin Wall. And I swear, I don't know what, I think I gave it away a long time ago. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't save it. I just feel like at the time I was like, no one's going to care about that. Now I wished I would have kept it. He says, you see, That's why those systems never work. That's why they don't continue to exist, because they don't work. There's never been one of those type of systems work. When you steal everything from everybody and there's nothing left, then what? So it would have collapsed anyway. And you're right, it was an amazing time. It was an amazing time to be alive and see all that happened. And I was always fascinated by Gorbachev, he says, who's an interesting man. Not that I say I trusted him, but he was an interesting man. It certainly revealed a lot of it certainly relieved a lot of global political pressure at that time. It was like a big sign of relief of all of humanity was released. Next question. I often wonder if dimensional changes are location specific. At home, I feel like I live in 4D, 5D for me, but other places like the DMV or airports feel very 3D or worse. There are certain businesses I avoid at all costs. Is this a thing or did I make it up? And Alex laughs and he says, "Oh," he says, "I don't know." He says, "When I'm in my home, I'm in my sanctuary. I feel like it's 4D. I had to go to the DMV and renew my driver's license." He says, "That was 2D. I felt like I was talking to rocks." He says, he laughs. He says, "They had the emotional engagement of a rock." So I think that part's probably accurate. It's you. He says it's how you see the world. It's your perspective, and whether we realize it or not, when you're thinking about moving in or out of dimensions, it's all frequency. So your home is your frequency. So, if you feel comfortable and you feel safe, and this is your sanctuary, then you've elevated the frequency of your home to you. That's where you're at. But the minute you leave your sanctuary, you go out into, or you go out among them, you're definitely going to run into a lot of other frequencies. You're going to run into first, second, third. Once in a while, you might stumble into someone or a group that's elevated above third, but it's pretty rare still. There are a lot of people who are awake, but they're hiding. They're not sharing just yet because they don't know who's safe. And that, of course, has all been done by design as well. Like I said, I think if you watch my videos, I've said that. Like, I think a lot of people are aware, they're awake of what's going on, but they're too afraid to talk in public. So he's right on with that. It says, getting us to be afraid of each other, being afraid to talk to each other because you don't know who you're going to offend. It says, because you might be talking to a young person and you don't have use the appropriate pronoun, and then they get all hissy about it and all that bullshit. He said, so it's difficult. But all of this was done by design to divide and conquer. And hopefully, when the history begins to truly roll out, all these pieces will fall into place and everyone will understand and realize how we've all been manipulated and to what degree. This goes all the way back to when the Anunnaki divided humanity and taught us all to speak different languages. There was a time on this planet when we all spoke the same language, and then they divided us, and they taught everyone different languages, so we could not easily communicate with each other. That's where this shit started. So, wars, these are all learned behaviors. We should all be worshiping the gods, the aliens. This is all learned behavior. And we had to do it, or we met with a very unpleasant end, our forefathers and foremothers. That's not where we are now, but we would still have that cellular memory of those times, whether we realize it or not. Many of the fears that people have, or panics, or the angst, sometimes the anger they have is not necessarily from this lifetime. It's other lifetimes or it's genetic memory. We are absolutely fascinating beings. We truly, truly are. And if we can remember the past, we can also remember the future. And that's what I try to focus on. I know I've come back from the future to this place to right a terrible wrong. So I focus on that. I focus on the future. Who was I then? Where was I then? And I try to reverse engineer my life, that they're 100,000 years in the future, whenever that is, fifth density, and then I reverse engineer myself to where I am today, and I'm like, okay, how do I get back there? How do I progress myself to that place? I think I pretty much do the same thing. He says, and I'm working on that. Says, and I'm working on that. I work on that all the time, actually. He says, I'm still a work in progress. I'm told I have two major faults. One, I don't listen, and I can't remember the other one. And he laughs. Anyway, he says, next question. There is a heavy push to activate the heavy 5G frequency nation and worldwide. Will the A's and any other guardians interfere with frequencies that will surely damage the jabbed population, including the kids? They have endured so much already. Alex's answer to that is, I don't know that they are going to. They've probably given quite a bit of input. I know that the white hats are all over this issue. They're literally all over this issue. And it's my understanding that in many parts of the world, Covfefe, which is a piece of technology, he says, is being added to the 5G towers. And Covfefe is a device that transmutes 5G into 432 hertz or a 528 hertz. So why don't y'all look into that? He says. And if you follow letter 17, you'll understand what Covfefe is. He says, okay. Also, he says, I'll give you a piece of homework. Everything is color, light, and sound. He says, what color are vowels? What color are vowels? He says, that's your homework. So do your homework. And maybe if you get on a live webinar with him on a Friday, you can answer that question for him. I did find some website that was, it was called Color Chart Spelling, or Vowel Color Chart Spelling. Or, no, not spelling. Sorry, it was vowelcolorchart.com. Look up vowel color chart, and it tells you, because basically, like, we all know by this time, the words you say are a spell. Every word is a spell. And if the words are a spell, the words have color as well. Everything is color, light, frequency. It's amazing. Amazing. And we are never taught any of this. Next question. When we die, are we still in the game? Still aware of the revolving drama of white hats versus black hats for the future of humanity? Do we get a breather away from all this drama until the bell rings again and we go in for another round to go back to work? Does the drama persist on the other side, or do we all just go back to source and laugh about it all? Oh my gosh, I never understood that question until he said until the bell rings and we wake up and go back to work. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Yeah. So he's asking, basically, when we go to sleep and we're in our subconscious and we're astral traveling, we're out of our body, we're able to experience other lifetimes, our past lifetimes, our cellular memory, all that stuff all the time. But then we have the alarm clock to wake us up. It's the bell. Ring in the morning to wake you up and pull you back out into this reality. Wow. Okay. Sorry. That just hit me. Alex says, that's an excellent question. He says, when I had my two near-death experiences, the old system was in place. That system no longer is in place. The capture and the enforced reincarnational system, he says, that no longer exists. I genuinely cannot tell you what happens now because I myself have not had another near-death experience with that system being gone. I do know that you do talk to those of your loved ones who have crossed over. They do hear you. Yes, they do. Um, that is still in place, and I know that for a fact because I've been reaching out to my dad. He has come several times to see me in the dream state. And what's interesting, and I know it's my dad because he loved college football and he loved Notre Dame, the University of Notre Dame. So when he comes to me, he's wearing a Notre Dame baseball hat. He says he never wore a baseball hat. I never saw him wear a hat my entire life. Okay. But when he comes to me, he's wearing that Notre Dame baseball hat and he's just like, hey, sport, how's it going? It's like we haven't missed a beat. And he's like, I hear you. And we have these really great conversations. He says, so that part's a fact, but I never stop to think, what's going on? He says, what's it like up there? Do you have a condo? Are you living on a boat? What's your story? And he just laughs. He says, because when I'm in the dream state with him, it's just about us. It's about reconnecting. Sometimes we overestimate our parents. Sometimes we focus on their flaws as opposed to what their strengths were. And we don't appreciate them until they're gone. Until years later, where you have a situation in your own life and you're like, wow, my dad's gone through this, or my mom's gone through this, or an aunt, or an uncle, or a grandparent. And then you begin to reflect on the moments that they were there and that you had, whether it be holidays, and you see things in a very different light. And you come to a place of real appreciation for everything that they are. And that's some of the things I talk about to my dad about. I was the oldest of 11. It was a yours, mine, and ours. 7 boys, 4 girls. It was interesting. He says, great stories, though. I wouldn't trade a minute of it. I haven't had a visitation from my mom in a while. She's always in my dreams. My dad's only come to me a couple times. I think he's too busy having fun doing other things, but my mom's like always been there. She was with me on the spaceships. Um, yeah, she's been around me visiting several times, so I know they're there. Next question. Previously, you stated DJT was asked in 2004 to join MJ12. Let me let my cat in. Kitty, Amber, my video kitty. He was asked in 2004 to join MJ12. However, you didn't state whether he accepted. Could you enlighten us further, and is it true that MJ12 is no longer nefarious in their dealings? They used to be. And he answers to that, there are elements of MJ12 that are always white hat. Elements that are always a white hat. Would it not make sense that those elements that are white hats then would be possibly then and connected to Q++ or Q+? Says, I mean, think about it. Said, think about it. The deep state really, really fucked up when they took out JFK. They really did. He said they thought they pulled a coup. They thought, this is it. We've got everything we want now. We can control and manage from here. Well, they did not have a coup. However, it's all coming back to them now, and they will go down in glorious fashion. It will be epic. The deep state takedown and all, and it's all because of what they've done to John Kennedy. It may even go further back. I've heard that. But I think specifically that was the line in the sand. Those that are not okay with it will never be okay with it. And I think there may have been people who were okay with it at the time and who are now, if they're still alive, are no longer okay with it because of how bad it's turned out. So that's how I'm going to answer that question in a vague, sort of misdirecting way. And he laughs. He says, but you know, all the white hats have a symbiotic relationship. Um, all all the benevolence have a symbiotic relationship. They even have a symbiotic relationship with the dark side. They're just in different places and frequency levels. It doesn't mean they don't interact and they don't know who each other is, but by vibrationally, they're in very different places. He says Trump would never sell out his country. Never, ever, ever sell out his country or humanity. He wouldn't do it. Like him or not, that's who he is. He'd never sell out or betray his country. And he says, I admire that in anybody. Next question. How do the ET races like the A's live and survive without money? I want us to move in that direction, but how do we do that since money is an enslavement to humanity? And Alex's answer is, well, I guess they're not slaves. He says they figured out a way to do it without money. Everything they need to survive, to exist, to excel, to evolve, to progress, to enlighten, he says, is provided by the society itself because everyone else has the same goal. And he repeats that everyone else has the same goal. So the society, the civilization, makes sure it's provided for everyone because they all have the same goal. Why would you need money? See, you ask that question because you don't know what it's like to live without money. There are people that don't have jobs. There are people who are homeless. There are people who live in the wilderness. They don't have 401ks. They figure it out every single day and they learn. They learn how to adapt. We will get there. Says that twice. We will get there. I have absolutely no doubt that we will get there. If we're moving into a galactic civilization, into a galactic community, you honestly think we're going to get up there and say, you know what? I want that spacesuit. Here's my American Express card. They're going to look at you with cross eyes and go, what? What the hell is that? And you're going to be like, well, I want to pay for it. Why would you want to pay for it? We'll give it to you. What's your size? Duh. He says, okay. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Don't have to worry about money. Hey, I would like that. You know, we'll get to that point too. And you feel, yeah, you think, oh, people will have all this money. They're just going to hoard everything. They're going to buy everything. They're going to, there won't be enough for everyone. You're just going to get to that point where you will have enough. Like, you don't need all this crap in your home. Like, I look at all this shit I have in my house and I'm like, why do I have all this crap? That's why, like, literally for the past 10 years, every 3, 4, 5 months, I go through all my stuff. Like, go through everything. I get rid of clothes, I get rid of decor, I get rid of a ton of stuff. At least twice a year when I can. Just my house is small too, so I can't bring in a whole lot. I don't, and I know a lot of people have a rule where if you want something new, you have to get rid of something. Same thing, If I haven't worn it in a year, screw it. It's going. I don't need it. We just need to learn to minimalize what we have, you know. Because I know that's foreign to most everybody on this planet. We have an incredible experience before us. We really, really do. To be able to learn from very healthy civilizations that are millions of years old, who have their shit together, and has to be so absolutely baffling to us, He says, how is it even possible? All we're going to have to do is to listen and pay attention and then do some deep soul searching. But that will come naturally as we begin to interact with more spiritually evolved beings than ourselves. The soul searching will come naturally, because as Visayas once said, it doesn't matter what you believe in as long as you know why you believe in it. Most of us don't know why. It's just a conditioning. We believe it because we've been conditioned to think it's real, to think that that is the way it is. Well, the surprise is definitely going to be on humanity. It's not that way. Only slaves live the way we have. We just didn't know it. We didn't know we were slaves. Some did, he says, most didn't. Just because we think we're free and we sing the songs doesn't actually mean we are. What's it actually like to be free? What does that actually mean to be free? To unconditionally be responsible for oneself without being coerced by anyone. What's it like? I'll let you sit with that. Next question, what are the Andromedans' thoughts on God? He says, well, they refer to it as isness. They cannot actually clearly define it, or at least that's what they've expressed to me. They refer to it as isness. In their opinion, if it did have a gender, it would be a feminine principle, not the male, but the feminine principle because it creates life. It creates physicality. It creates dimension. They themselves are still learning what the presence actually is and how to fully integrate with it. They are being mentored by 2 star nations in 6th density. Those 6th density star nations are being mentored by a star nation in the 7th and one in the 8th. And that mentoring, one of the principles of all the mentoring, all of the way down, is regarding the source, what we call God or Creator or Great Spirit. They call by other names. But in principle, we're all talking about the same thing, and we all individually want to know what that is. As you fall further down into physicality to a more denser dimension, the further you get from the presence. But nonetheless, the presence is always with us as long as one loves themselves. They're cognizant of the present. In the A's opinion, when a being doesn't matter if they're human or not, or excuse me, when a being, it doesn't matter if they're human or not. When the soul reaches a place where it no longer loves itself, it cannot feel the presence and therefore does not believe in the presence. That love for oneself is in fact the divinity of connection to source. We have a lot to learn. He says we have a lot to learn about the densities, the dimensions, the source, about ourselves. But the best information I always got was all the broken pieces will find their way home. That always is the best part of information I got, because it means no matter how far you go, you will eventually go back to source. That's good news to me, he says, because that means no one is lost. They wander, they leave their path, but at some point they always find their way back home. And if you watched my video, I was like, oh my gosh, why would he say that? I had my coffee cup that said about, always wonder, and repeat. And so for him to close with that, they wander, and they may leave their path, but they always find their way back home. I just thought that was exceptional. So anyway, that was from June 10th. I need to do another video. I'll probably do it this week for his question and answers on June 17th. So if I get a chance, what time is it today? It's 3. Yeah, I might do another one today and we'll send it out this week. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. If you love this information, yeah, support Alex. He's an awesome guy. He's got James and JP helping him out when he does his webinars on brighteon.com. Go to alexcollier.org, support him, donate to him, help him with some gas money for these conferences. So he's definitely a commander, Commander Collier, on this planet. He's helped me a lot. I really resonate with a lot of his stuff, his information. So anyway, give him some love, and if you enjoyed this information, pass this on to others, like and share to my channel. Thank you so much to all the new subscribers. I love all of you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I wish I could give all of you a great big hug. You are my soul family. The party's coming. Like one day we're gonna be all together having a great big party. I can't wait. So I love all of you. Thank you so much. Until next time. Love ya. Bye.